The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
See us?
There we go. Hello. Hey, everybody. We figured we sent you a whole bunch of emails, and many of you know who we are, but we wanted to make sure you knew our faces as well as our emails. So, I'm Mark.
I'm Caroline.
I'm Josh.
I'm Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aubrey.
Chris.
And now our faces are going to continue talking at you for another hour or so.
Bye, faces.
Bye, faces. But rest assured, we're still here. And in fact, if you have questions as we go through this webinar, which is for you people who are presenting at 3D Basecamp, please do either ask them at the end or type them into the interface, the webinar interface, as we're going along. We'll either respond during the webinar or we'll address your questions directly at the very end. So with that, I think we're going to get right into it.
Hey guys, this is Aaron. First thing we're going to talk about is our Basecamp schedule. So first thing I want to do is make sure you do review the schedule. You need to know when your sessions are, where your sessions are, and what your sessions are. You're the only one responsible. Well, how about that? Apparently we're a little bit paused on the screen right now. Let me back up one slide and bring you all into this. All right, there we go. We're getting all the mistakes out of the way now, so Basecamp will run smoothly when we get there in 2 months. All right, so as we were saying, your responsibility to know your schedules. You know where your classes are, when your classes are, and what you're teaching in each individual class. Basecamp is significantly larger than last year. So last time was a lot easier to find classrooms because there's only a couple of them. This time we're looking at around a dozen different classrooms spread out throughout the section of the hotel we're in. So just make sure you do your due diligence and know what, when, where, why, how you're doing what you're doing. Just a pro tip, if you do look at the list of classes on our website, this is the Schedule view. If you click on the schedule up at the top, you can actually filter by grid. Grid view gives you an entire day worth of classes all at once rather than just that, I don't know what you'd call the simple view where it shows just whatever classes are happening in a given time. So if you are looking at that, a grid view is a great way to see that information. And when you go to get your information, the easiest way to find the classes that you're teaching is to go to the speakers, click on yourself, and it will actually give you a list of those classes. So we do urge everybody to go through and make sure they know what they're planning to teach or what we're planning to have you teach. Last thing we want to do, of course, is have you sign up for a class that you don't think or don't want to be showing. So do make sure you check that out well in advance of actual Basecamp. There's a couple housekeeping tips beforehand. The big thing is timeliness. We do have, like I said, a whole lot more presentations than we've had in previous years. This time we have, I can't remember, over 100 different classes going. And most of these classes are back to back to back. So classes have about a 15-minute break between them. So it is important that you, if you're starting a class, show up at the beginning of the break so you can get set up and ready to run at the time that your class starts. And also make sure you are wrapped up by the end of your scheduled time. We don't have time to go over or have extra Q&A time. We are going to have to stick to a pretty strict schedule, which segues nicely into something called room monitors. There will be a person in every room that will help you with these things. They'll do things like introductions. They will be the ones who will be giving you time, countdown, when you need to wrap up, and they will help you out with anything else you need. But it will be, like I said, their big thing will be making sure that you do stay on schedule. Don't take it personally if they kick you out of a room. They still like you, but we need the room for the next presenter. Another point I just want to bring out, this is a photograph of one day of classes that we have right here. And see those little teal diamonds represent empty slots. We do have space for additional workshops and presentations. So if anything is on your mind that would be a cool thing to present, please let us know ASAP, and we could actually get you one of these slots. They are available for now. We would love to fill them up if possible. We have the room for them, but you do need to let us know as soon as possible, and we can work with you to kind of develop content if you need that help. Another point is that some of these presentations will be recorded. So something to keep in mind, workshops won't be. The hands-on stuff, we're not going to bother recording. That just doesn't work out very well. But the presentations will be screen captured and the voices will be recorded. With that, we're going to move on to template and tips, starring Mark Harrison.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. So everyone, this is Mark Harrison, Mark at SketchUp again. I want to talk a little bit about some advice for your presentations. I also, before I get into that, I want to call out just to everyone on the team, all those faces you just saw, and also to we have 29 of you on this webinar right now in the middle of the day. Everything, if you haven't already noticed about it, everything about 3D Basecamp 2018 we think is getting a little bit better. We've been trying to up our game across the whole spectrum, and I really think this is showing in the content program, the presentations and the workshops that you all on this webinar and some of the people who aren't here as well have committed to create on behalf of the SketchUp community. So we really wanted to say thank you for that. Before we tell you exactly how to do it. So with that, I want to talk about our 3D Basecamp template, which is a little bit new for 2018. The template is available in both PowerPoint and Google Slides. In Google Slides, the default typeface for the typeface that the template was in fact designed with is a font called Lato. It's actually embedded in the Google Slides. If you are using PowerPoint, you probably need to go to fonts.google.com and download that typeface if you don't already have it in your operating system. If you want to make this template better in some way, please feel encouraged to make it better. We don't really want to constrain you creatively, especially those of you who are professional illustrators by trade. I'm sure you guys can create or modify the template, but the idea of the template is to provide you with a great baseline, and Lato is one of the fundamentals of that baseline. So if you find yourself in Verdana or Arial, know that something has gone astray. I also want to offer this kind reminder. Please refrain as possible from overusing bullet points. I don't think this is actually something that this group needs to hear, but as we saw in 2016, sometimes bullet points can be sort of an easy way to outline your presentation, and you never get around to evacuating them from the presentation. The great thing about many of you, as I said, who happen to be professional visualizers or illustrators, is that you have a knack for SketchUp. And if you didn't know it already, SketchUp is basically 3D clip art. Earlier, someone asked me what this model was. I said, it doesn't really matter. It's just interesting to look at. And that is true about SketchUp models and presentations. Even if you're not presenting about a specific project model of your own, 3D Warehouse is basically a never-ending 3D clip art gallery. So please feel encouraged to use it. Please use Layout to export hybrid rendered PNGs as necessary. Do full bleed images. We hope that you will make beautiful, beautiful presentations. In fact, I believe there's one person, Liam Keating, who is making a presentation about making beautiful presentations. We should all go to that before 3D Basecamp. I do want to call this out. This event is getting a little bit bigger this year. We will have classes with over 100 attendees as a norm. We will have audio-visual support, including microphones for you all. But it's very important to think about speaking up. Speaking up is a thing that not everyone does intuitively or as a practice, especially if you're not used to giving presentations to big rooms like this. And the nice thing is we will have our room monitors sort of be policing the back of the room. Not policing, but just keeping an eye on how audible are you at the back of the room. We noticed this last year that some people would sort of start at a low level and every now and then perk up to a high level, but this really is part of what makes your presentation and makes your connection with the audience more tangible and real is the fact that people, no matter where they are in the room, can hear you. So we ask you to keep this in mind. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't speak up, you might, or doesn't have the experience speaking to large numbers of people, as many of the presenters at 3D Basecamp may not have, including many of the people on our team don't have experience talking to hundreds of people at a time. We want to tell you that it's okay to be a little bit nervous. In fact, it's actually, we think, a good idea to be a little bit nervous. If you are a little bit nervous, it probably means that you are thinking about your presentation in advance of 3D Basecamp, that you may be dreaming about your presentation in advance of 3D Basecamp. It just means that you're integrating, in my experience, the content that you're going to be presenting. And then maybe your nerves will work you up before the event. But in my experience of public speaking, that actually just means that everything that you need to know about what you're going to say is just fusing itself into your DNA. So you should be totally fine if you are a little bit nervous. But we also want you to know that you're not on your own. I apologize for forgetting the date, but we did provide a deadline, a quote unquote deadline for 3D Basecamp presentations. And really the idea here is we know a couple things. We know that if you are giving a presentation, for the most part, you are going to procrastinate creating that presentation. Not everyone. I want to shout out to several 3D Basecamp presenters, folks from Polygon especially, who are well ahead of the ball on making their presentations. But I'll speak for myself. If I have to make a presentation, I'm definitely going to procrastinate it. This time, our deadline is sort of positioned in the schedule so that if you want some feedback on your presentation, we will be happy to offer you basically a QA and also a review with a little bit of feedback. So really, the idea of the deadline is to help you be A, a little bit less nervous because you're more prepared, and B, to get some feedback and help from our team. We love helping people make better presentations, even excellent presentations about SketchUp. So I guess really the point is it's good to be a little bit nervous, but also know that we've got your back with questions about the template, with questions about a tactic, a special need for the presentation. Please email us 3dbasecamp@sketchup.com or mark@sketchup.com or aaron@sketchup.com or josh@sketchup.com. The deadline, the quote-unquote deadline, is August 17th. That's a full month or so before 3D Basecamp, so you procrastinators may not be able to take advantage of it. But if you want to procrastinate until a given date, then August 17th is a good date to think about. With that, we're going to transition to room setup.
Hey guys, this is Aaron again, and I want to talk a little bit about the room you'll actually be in during your presentation. There are two different types of rooms. There are those set up for presentations and those set up for workshops. There is going to be a big difference because the workshop rooms will have tables, whereas the presentation rooms will just have chairs. The big thing that this impacts is the number of people that will fit inside the room. Our presentation rooms are huge. We're talking, I don't think all of them are over 100 people up to several hundred people. Workshops end up being a little smaller. 80 to 130, I think, is the average size of a workshop room. So one of the things I said before is we are looking at a much bigger Basecamp than we have seen in the past. Just another thing to think about is those different types of rooms. A lot of you are teaching both presentations and workshops. Just wanted you to know that there will be a difference in the layout of those rooms. Again, we're going to stress one more point another time, which is that room monitor. So these room monitors are SketchUp employees. They're being paid to be here for you. So this is something that you do want to take advantage of. Their responsibility for the day is making sure that you as a presenter have everything you need when you need it. So if there's a problem with your audio, your mouse dies, need a bottle of water, whatever it is, make sure you take advantage of the room monitor. What we don't want to do is have you as the presenters leaving the room or going to take care of things. That's what the room monitor is for. So they are your resource, your all-in-one resource to take care of any issues that you run into before or during your presentation. One of the big things we do want to push, Mark talked a lot about slideshow, which is really important. We think this is a great slideshow, but we do want to make sure that you are showing, actually doing stuff, showing software. It is good to have your info in there in the slideshow, but let's get over and show the real thing as soon as possible. So Not that we're not insecure. We're not saying you have to show SketchUp the whole time, but it is SketchUp's users conference. So, it's a good idea to get as much SketchUp and layout up on the screen as we can during our sessions and not just show slideshow images of the software. One of the things that we will have in the room is you will have an HDMI connection. This will connect you to the projector, and there will be a Cat5 Ethernet cable there too to connect you to the network. There is conference Wi-Fi throughout the entire event, so anybody can hop onto that while they're there. But we are giving you, as presenters, a dedicated hard line. So if you need access to Basecamp, or I'm sorry, Warehouse or YouTube or something like that, you'll be able to get to it much better connection than what you would have on the Wi-Fi potentially. What we are not providing you is whatever kind of adapter your specific computer may need to connect to these two cables. So if you do have your Ethernet connector, make sure you throw it in the bag now. Same with HDMI, make sure you can connect to those because we will try to have some adapters on hand, but we won't necessarily have exactly what your computer needs. All right, this is one of those high impact images where there's just one thing there and it's supposed to like really sink in hard. So we're just gonna stare at this for a second. Yeah, it's a computer screen with a number 1 on it. This is the number of computers you should use during your presentation. We have a handful of people who are co-presenting, and that's fine. What we do not want to have happen is have you switch between one computer to another. It just introduces the possibility of an issue. We want to make sure that when you get in there, you get set up, your computer's working, and we just leave that working computer connected and use it throughout the whole presentation. So if you do have a co-presenter, you guys work together ahead of time and get the whole presentation onto one computer. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Josh Riley, and he's going to talk about our fabled USB stick of knowledge.
Fabled indeed. This is Josh and the USB stick of knowledge, otherwise known as the USB sock, from right now forward. If you went to Basecamp in 2016, you probably know all about this. It is a flash drive that everyone's going to get, and ideally will have all the files anyone will need to go through the class without having to find it on some cloud storage or scramble to get the files before the class. It's meant to really streamline the start of the class. So the image there may or may not be what the actual thing looks like. So it's just a stand-in, a proxy. The content deadline has been moved to September 1st, so that's awesome. Keep that date in mind, 1st of September. We want to have all the content basically able to be loaded on. That's the deadline to do that. So that's pretty important. And if you are sort of, I guess the best way that I would think about doing this is go through your presentation kind of a second time and make sure things like an image that you're having someone import, don't forget about the little files that you might need to throw on there. Extensions are a big one. If you've been using an extension for a while, you might forget, oh yeah, that's something that they're going to need to install. So get those on in your class folder as well. There's a Google Drive link that has everyone's name on it, and they have that link, right? Cool. In the email, yeah. So that's where you drop all your stuff. And then as we said in that same email, less than 200 megabytes is going to be what we're shooting for. And a note about workshops. I think Aaron pretty much said all this stuff, but I'll just cruise through it one more time. Oh, you'll notice that I did not use bullet points here. I made sure I heeded Mark's warning, and I used diamonds and arrows. Also, don't do this. This is not a good way to do it. So yeah, proctors, Aaron covered that, but I just want to talk about that again. Really, don't be afraid to go to your proctors and your room monitors for help. If you think you need something, just tell them, just communicate, because we want you to be comfortable and just ready to do your presentation. Our goal is to help you do anything that you need, so we don't want you stressing about any kind of logistics. So please start a dialogue with them when you get in the room. Say hello and just get friendly, and they're there to help you. They have nothing else to do except make sure that class goes smoothly. The class size is rather large, so even for me, the class that I'm teaching is probably going to be the biggest class I've ever taught. So maybe take a step back once you've done your prep for your class and kind of think about how many people are actually going to be following along with you. This doesn't go for presentations, more for the workshops, but it's going to be a mass of people trying to follow you, and we're going to have proctors to help you out. But kind of make sure you have things just dialed in for that large group of people following along. And then, I didn't mention as well, a quick note if you didn't notice this, Monday and Tuesday workshops are 90 minutes or an hour and a half, and Wednesday through Friday are a little bit longer, so not a big deal, but it might give you a chance, if you're doing workshops that span the whole week, you might have a bit more time on that Basecamp side versus the bootcamp side in terms of time. And then also one last reminder to review your session descriptions and your bio this week, because we don't want to be doing changes after this week to that kind of stuff. So give it one last look over, especially because Aaron's been doing some hard copy paste work, and who knows if he made a mistake. So just review those now so we get it all lined up and looking good. And I think that is it. Question time?
Yeah, let's get into the questions. Aaron and Josh and I will all corral, and let's see which questions we have not answered yet. All right, so we're just going to get our question, a super technical question dashboard up here, and let's see which questions we have not answered. Dave, we will do our best with the M&Ms. Okay, here's a question from Liam Keating. Will you have an idea of workshop attendance that we can have an idea of how many we will be teaching in order to make sure that the content works? Okay, that's a great question. So here's how this works essentially, at least today. Sketch, if you look at your session in Sketch, you'll see a record of how many people have signed up. Now, I think that what we'll try to do before the event, we'll be having our own internal sort of calculator of how big we think the sessions are going to be. And yes, we will try to provide that to you. So the record of how many people have signed up at Sketch is really going to be an approximation of how many people have bothered to create their agenda in Sketch. So there'll be a little bit of an error bar around that, Liam. But yes, hopefully in the probably as soon as we give the hotel our estimates on the room numbers, we'll provide those to you. And I'm guessing that's going to be about 3 to 4 weeks before the event in that time zone. So that's a good question. Thanks, Liam. What's the next question we haven't answered?
We can answer. Not everybody's seen these answers.
Okay, so all right. Will we know who our room monitor is in advance?
Yes, we will. Those people will be assigned, and they will be connected to you ahead of time. So if there's specific things that you need out of the class or specific instructions you want to give them, we will make sure that you are connected with them and you get a chance to chat via email, if not meet in person at Basecamp.
Cool. Let's see the next one.
We already did that one. Or a button.
We can repeat the feedback deadline.
Yeah, a couple people asked about that.
So the feedback deadline is August 17th, and the deadline for the USB stick of knowledge, we pushed this one way out from our original date because we really think that this is important. September 1st is for the content on the USB stick of knowledge. What are the, let's see if I can see this full question here. Okay. Great. What are the requirements of attendees for workshops? Are they supposed to be at a certain skill level or competency level? Okay, great question. Thank you, Mike Brightman. So during both Bootcamp and Basecamp, both events start with a 101 and 201 training. So Monday and also Wednesday/Thursday, people who need to take 101 and 201, and this is a big chunk of attendees, will likely be in those classes. At the same time, Mike, and this is for everyone really, during registration, we're going to try to help people figure out what classes they should and should not take. So we're going to have a little bit of a sort of a vetting process during registration, and we're going to do our best to advise people. So the classes are rated as beginner, intermediate. The workshops are rated as beginner, intermediate, advanced. There's going to be some error around that as well, but this is definitely something that the folks who worked 3D Bootcamp, Josh specifically, called out last year as an issue. We do want to weed 101 people out of intermediate classes, and that even goes for the people teaching the 201 classes. We want to make sure those people get weeded out. Another thing that we're going to have the room monitors sort of preface for workshops is to really encourage people who feel like they're not confident with the subject matter to drift to the back of the workshop classes so that they can coordinate a little bit more with the proctors, you know, throughout the workshop without distracting the workshop lead. So the answer, Mike, is there are expectations and not necessarily requirements, and we're trying to help attendees figure out which classes are a good choice for them.
We did have a question international. Rodrigo asked about what type of energy jack we use over here. I don't know the name of it. It's the one that's got the two flat things and then the post below it. We can probably put that in an email, one of our future emails resources, and give you the exact name and maybe a picture of it. Yeah, we know what it is. I just don't know what it's called. We'll straighten it out. If nothing else, Rodrigo, I'll let you know individually.
And there was a question about the USB stick of knowledge being essential for workshops versus presentations. And yeah, presenters don't really need to provide anything for that. I mean, there could be a case, I suppose, where a presentation has people need a file, but I can't think of one. A presentation is mostly going to be someone talking to the whole crowd, and they're just going to be listening, taking notes, whatever. But for workshops, very different, because a lot of workshops are going to have content that attendees need to access. So good question, but it's mostly the USB stick of knowledge is mostly a workshop thing.
And as a follow-up to that, this is Tammy's question. Will the folks in the workshop all have access to the internet? Great question. Specifically, Tammy's asking about access to 3D Warehouse, which I could see why would be important for people to be able to dig into during a workshop. The answer is that people will have access to the hotel conference Wi-Fi. And there is a difference between conference Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi that is really useful. This is why there's a USB stick of knowledge in the first place. We learned this a couple of years ago when 2014, when a few workshops were totally derailed. So the answer is yes, probably people will be able to open the 3D warehouse, and maybe they'll even be able to browse it. But I would really encourage you, not just Tammy, everyone, if your workshop requires content, it's probably a good idea to load it locally in the USB stick of knowledge and not count on 3D Warehouse downloads or Extension Warehouse downloads during a workshop.
Okay, another question on the stick of knowledge. Great question. Compatibility for previous versions of SketchUp, and that is not necessary. We're going to have a site-wide event license for 2018, and in the instances where someone has an older computer or can't install version 2018, we'll deal with that after registration in the Knowledge Cafe. So again, to repeat that, on the stick of knowledge, you only need to put 2018 SketchUp version stuff on there. And there was a question as well regarding...
Well, just real quick, just to point out, Liam Keating did come to the rescue and point out that what we're looking at for power is AB, which is the world standard for US plug socket. UK Type G won't work, and Swedish Type C won't work either, but we know that. So A or B apparently will work. So thank you, Liam.
And there's a good question from Tammy saying her presentation is longer than an hour and a half. That is true. There's a couple classes that are they're all-day classes. So I just meant that the standard slots, there's a difference, 1.5 hours versus 2 hours on some of those standard slots that are Monday, Tuesday versus Wednesday through Friday. But some people do have longer classes.
Devin asked about those blue diamonds on our schedule for empty slots. We do have presentations and a few workshops available. Very few on the workshops thing, but we do have spaces available for both types if you guys have specific questions. Some of these just opened up. We did actually have some shuffling. We lost a few classes in the last few weeks. So if you do have a specific idea, please do let us know ASAP. Question about how much space we have. There is not rooms with specific space for additional equipment. They will all be set up the same. They'll be set up classroom style where all the seats will come up to I can't remember, within 10, 15 feet of the front where the podium is, there's not classes with additional space. So we do have kind of a standard way that they're going to be set up. And again, because of the turnover we're doing classes, one class after another, we're limited as to doing custom setups in our seating.
But that's a question from Joseph, who is actually giving a presentation about that relates to VR. So that's a good example, Joseph, of a unique need that that we might need to know about. So please email me and CC Aubrey, and that way we can keep track of any special needs or think about opportunities. For instance, there's a whole room dedicated to VR, which you may already know about, but that will give us some sense of how to prepare if we need/can. Okay, man, you guys really the keg is flowing now. The question keg.
Embedding.
Okay. What should I know about embedding video on a slide? I found that a 1080p or 720p shows with big black bars at the top and the bottom. This is David Heim.
So when you put that video in there, it's actually embedding the link to the YouTube video. That what you're actually showing there is a thumbnail. So don't stress about the black bars or anything like that. We messed with it in Google Slides and couldn't get it to resize right. But when you actually play a video, what I'm assuming will happen is you'll start the video and then hit full screen, which will then run the image full screen on the projector, and then returning to the slideshow after.
Yes, but by presume we mean suggest. When you start the video, expand it to full screen. It's a good reason to. This is one thing we'll do during our presentation review. If you happen to be able to take advantage of it, we'll give you some suggestions about slides and cadence. Do we need to treat paid extensions differently? For example, many paid extensions have free trial versions for people to demo. So that's from Eric. No, I think that's appropriate, right? If you are teaching a workshop and you're using a paid extension, the ideal scenario is that people can trial that extension during your workshop. If people can't use the extension that you're promoting during the workshop, it kind of makes the workshop not hands-on. The nice thing is that there are a lot of 3D extension developers coming to 3D Basecamp, and I'm pretty sure that many of them would work with you to get trial permissions for their extensions as an exception for the event. So if you can't find a trial for a paid extension you need, please let us know. If you can't contact the extension developer, we'll be happy to nudge on your behalf. I am still on SketchUp 2016 due to a lot of jobs in progress. Okay, Greg. Is it all important that I convert to 2018 SketchUp as a presenter and present in 2018? We would say yes. Most people are nodding around the room right now. And why don't you just get in touch with us if we need to help you out on that front. Obviously, we'll be providing attendees with a trial license during the event and offering some promotions as well. But yeah, thank you for asking that question, Greg. And we would prefer, we hope that you find some benefits too in the last 2 years. All right, where are we at? Are we done? We are done with the questions, we think. If we missed a question, please do email us. If you know our first name, you know our email address, as you already know. Is there a map for the rooms? Last question, Dave Richards snuck it right in there.
A map does exist. We will be releasing it with the app in the near future, very soon.
So with that, we want to thank you guys for spending an hour with us this afternoon. We know there'll be more questions that come up over the next 2 months. This is already the best 3D Basecamp ever, and we're not even in Palm Springs yet. We expect to sell the event out in the next few weeks. We're thinking about making it even bigger, but I think for right now, it's just the right size. And thanks to you guys, it's just the right schedule and agenda as well. So on behalf of everyone else in the room who's sort of hovering in ghost silence mode, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks.
We'll see you in Palm Springs.